Welcome back to more Euro Fantasy content. This will be my team selection for Matchday 6 as we approach the semi-final stage, and the plan is to wildcard in tomorrow's deadline stream, so make sure not to miss it by smashing the like button of this video and getting it to over 300 likes, and to push us on towards 25,000 subscribers. We're very close towards reaching that milestone, so thank you very much for all your support. Check out all the other links in the description below for my Patreon, the Championships Discord server, Euro Fantasy League, Draft Town, and also Spotify. But I'll start off with a review of Matchday 5 and then looking ahead towards Matchday 6 and talking about my wildcard as well as alternatives at the very end. Ultimately, I made a mistake by not going for Maignan, who was one of my planned transfers between the sticks. I have Verbruggen and Pickford playing on the same day, and in fact, when the lineups were out, I didn't have the time to make that change and bring Verbruggen into the starting 11. So in the end, Pickford got 2 points. Verbruggen only got 3, so not much of a difference there. But I should have gone for Maignan, and one of my midfielder transfers also flopped. But it was ultimately 2 transfers I made in the defence, which saved my Matchday 5, because otherwise it would have been one to forget for the entire tournament. All of my defenders in the starting 11 delivered, starting with Joao Cancelo, who only got 6 points. Not many ball recovery points, to be quite honest with you, like he does in UCL Fantasy, and no goals or assists, which is very surprising, and he didn't justify that 6 million price tag, but it was a nice way to wrap up his Euro campaign in that 0-0 draw with France, and ultimately they were flawless from the spot, and Portugal just missed the one penalty, and that was costly. But Joao Cancelo was a decent option, but in terms of value, there was a certain Portuguese defender at 41 years of age in Pepe, who was even better, and he produced 7 points in Matchday 5, and that was probably his last game for Portugal in a major international tournament. My third defender was De Vrij. Yes, he was one of my transfers in, and he delivered 12 points by scoring the equaliser against Turkey and winning player of the match, so I'm very happy with that transfer. And the same goes for this one in Jules Koundé, who got 9 points, a ball recovery machine. He's been the best defender in Euro Fantasy so far, with 39 points, more than anybody else at the moment, and I think he's the best way to cover the French national team defensively. Unfortunately, things just went south when we go to the midfielders and above. Musiala blanked, and he was my first captain. He only got 3 points, and it was always between him and Mbappe in terms of attackers. I briefly considered Jules Koundé, but I didn't go for it, and fair play to those that captain French defenders or even Portuguese. That was definitely the play on the Friday last week. But Jamal Musiala had a great tournament. He had a few moments and was quite unlucky not to produce a return, but in the end, it is a blank and only 3 points for the German international, as the host crashed out to the hands of Spain with a 119th minute winner by Merino, which was unexpected to say the least. My second midfielder was Bellingham, who also blanked, and he delivered 2 points, so that was very disappointing. It was Bukayo Saka, in fact, who got 11 points, and he was the standout player from the England team, and Declan Rice got the assist, multiple ball recoveries to produce 7 points as well. So Bellingham has been kind of hot and cold in this tournament. He's played very poorly overall, but in 2 particular matches against Serbia and Slovakia, he stepped up with big goals, and maybe he'll do the same thing against the Netherlands next time round. My third midfielder, meanwhile, was Xavi Simons, and he was my third transfer, and ultimately I should have gone for N'Golo Kante instead of Xavi Simons. Kante in the end got 4 points, and that would have meant I could have got Maignan in goal. But then again, I also bought De Vrij and Koundé with 2 of my free transfers, so you can't have it all, basically. Maybe if I played my wild card, but then I would have been in a worse position going into Matchday 6 with a lot of eliminated players and suspensions. So I'm very happy, especially considering the fact I sold Carvajal to De Vrij, with Carvajal now suspended, and you couldn't sub him out because once a player is sent off, you can't make changes with that particular player. But my fourth and final midfielder in the starting 11 was Fabian Ruiz, who got booked. He made 8 ball recoveries, but just the 3 points to show for it. And in the end, it was Dani Olmo who made the difference with a goal and assist, and he looks like the best Spanish midfielder at the moment. Every single one of my forwards blanked, starting with Harry Kane, who got booked, and he was actually subbed off before the penalty shootout around 105 minutes, so that was also quite surprising. But it looks like he had a collision, and in the end he had to be subbed off. But he has been so underwhelming in this tournament, despite scoring twice against Denmark and Slovakia, and that was a very crucial goal in the round of 16. But he's been very ineffective for large portions of the game, a bit like Bellingham, but both of them have 2 goals to their tallies, and they're the most likely to score for England, especially going into the semi-finals. I'd still back them to have a good chance of scoring, but let's wait and see, because the Netherlands are still a very tough team and they've got a good record against the English. But my second striker and the final player in the 11 was Cody Gakpo, who I ended up captaining on the second day, and he only got 3 points. At one stage, I think Eurofantasy gave him the goal for the own goal scored by the Turkish player, but he had nothing to do with it, so rightfully so, the points were taken off, and he only got 1 ball recovery point to show for it, and of course the appearance point to produce 3 overall. One thing this tournament has shown us is don't be afraid to captain a defender because of ball recoveries and also backing the clean sheet or hoping for the best there. And Jules Koundé was one of the standout players in Matchday 5 overall, and he was my second highest scoring player. So I have to say, De Vrij did cross my mind on the Wednesday, but I thought Turkey would score, and that ended up happening, so I ended up not going for it. So him scoring and getting player of the match was quite fortunate. I actually have more regrets about not captaining Koundé, despite the fact that he got 3 fewer points than De Vrij, but that's 52 points overall, and it was enough to see a green arrow to 7,427. So those 2 transfers of Koundé and De Vrij saved Matchday 5 for me. The rest, apart from Pepe and Cancelo, were very disappointing. Several positions are up for grabs, starting with the goalkeeper, and it's between Maignan and Unai Simon for the Tuesday match on the 9th of July, and I'm currently favouring Maignan, but I might go for Unai Simon instead and then go for another French defender, and my plan is to go for 2 defensive coverage from Spain and France. It's a very close game in my opinion. I know Spain are looking much more convincing at the moment, but France are very solid defensively with only 1 goal conceded in this tournament, which was from a penalty, while Spain have conceded twice. So I think both teams are worth doubling up on defensively, and I'm going for Maignan in goal. One player who is locked in for me is Jules Koundé. I know Upamecano and Saliba are good for ball recoveries, but Koundé is even better in that metric. You've also got Theo Hernandez, another good way of covering the French defence, but I think Koundé is a step above of any French defender, and I wouldn't even mind a triple up despite facing Spain, who have the best attack, especially from those teams remaining in this competition. But no matter what you do, go for Jules Koundé, who is the highest scoring defender in Eurofantasy. Next up is Marc Guéhi, who's also right up there in terms of Eurofantasy points amongst defenders, and another ball recovery machine. He missed Matchday 5 due to suspension, but he's now available, and despite Konsa playing well in the quarterfinals, I think Guéhi comes back into the starting 11, and it could be both of them playing together, but I think Guéhi would get the edge over Konsa if it came down to a straight shootout between those two for a starting spot in the 11. Now I'm going to go for another defensive double up here with Spain, and Aymeric Laporte is my favourite Spanish defender right now. He only costs 5 million, he's getting ball recovery points, especially in the knockout stages, and I think he's a very underrated option with only 5% ownership. And the fourth and final defender is Marc Cucurella, who only costs 4.5 million. He also gets some ball recovery points from time to time, but he is someone I might change. So it could be Unai Simon for Maignan, and then Saliba or Theo Hernandez displacing Marc Cucurella in my starting 11. It's fair to say we have plenty of options in the midfield, but not many standouts, and especially for France, I don't think they boast many good midfielders in Eurofantasy, and N'Golo Kante is probably the best of a relatively bad bunch. Tchouameni is taking a lot of long-distance shots, and he's also quite good with them, so he could be someone to consider, and Camavinga, when he starts, is decent for ball recoveries, but N'Golo Kante can get you 1 ball recovery point, possibly 2, and player of the match awards, which is very important. Now, if you want a pure ball recoverer in the heart of the midfield, I think Declan Rice is the best option, and I might go for him over a Saka or Bellingham at the very end. Speaking of which, I'm going to go for the attacking option of Bukayo Saka, who scored the equaliser against Switzerland, and he also dispatched his penalty in the shootout, and he had a great game. He was definitely deserving of that man of the match award, and I think he could be a difference maker in the semi-final to have England go through to yet another major tournament final. But they still have to beat the Netherlands, which is going to be very difficult. Ultimately though, Declan Rice could come in for me, and Saka might make way. So he's not nailed on in this team, but he's certainly the more exciting player to own with his goals and assist potential. I'm now going to go for another midfield double up, and it's going to be for Spain yet again. Dani Olmo is probably the best midfielder left in the competition, which might sound a bit strange, but he hasn't played that many minutes compared to Fabian Ruiz and Bellingham, who are the only two midfielders with more Euro fantasy points at this stage of the competition. And with Pedri now injured, that opens the door for Dani Olmo to be a starter. He came on to replace the injured Pedri against Germany and got a goal and assist to send Spain through to the semi-final. So I think Dani Olmo is probably a step above Fabian Ruiz, Rodri and Nico Williams. Speaking of which, I also have Nico Williams right now, who is very exciting to watch. And Fabian Ruiz narrowly misses out. I could still go for him to replace Nico Williams, but no matter what, Olmo will be in my final squad come match day 6. We aren't blessed with many midfield options right now, to be quite honest with you, and I'm going to go for Harry Kane because of the quality of player. He had a great season with Bayern Munich, but beyond that, he performs very consistently for England. There's no denying that. He's won a Golden Boot at a World Cup before. He's done it before at the Euros, particularly at the last edition, and he hasn't really clicked so far with only the 2 goals, but if he can score a brace against the Netherlands, which isn't out of the question, he would lead the Golden Boot race unless Cody Gakpo produces an effort of his own. But I have to say, Harry Kane is capable of some big moments, and I think the semi-finals could be where he finally steps up and produces another big moment, because to be fair, he scored the winner against Slovakia, but I just think his overall performances have been underwhelming, and maybe now is the time for him to really step up and prove the critics wrong, because a lot of England fans want him dropped for a more dynamic attack. They believe Harry Kane is slowing things down way too much, and I do agree to a certain extent, but there's no chance they will get dropped. And next up is another expensive striker in Kylian Mbappe. These two are the most expensive in the game, and he's facing Spain, which is going to be very difficult. But if there's one player that can make the difference for France, it's undoubtedly going to be Kylian Mbappe. Despite Dembele winning the Player of the Match award against Portugal, Mbappe has yet to win one of these awards in this tournament. He was very good at that in UCL Fantasy over the years, so we're hoping they can translate that sort of form into the international stage, particularly at the Euros, because he has a great record for France, but not in this particular competition. This starting 11 looks very strong. It might look slightly imbalanced with no Dutch players whatsoever, but we do have a bench, which is very important as well. Now, I do concede that the overall balance might be missing a little bit, because despite having 4 French and 4 Spanish, I've got 5 from England and only 2 from the Netherlands. My backup goalkeeper will be Jordan Pickford. I think Verbruggen remains a good option, but I think England are more likely to keep a clean sheet in that particular matchup. I've gone for De Vrij, Bellingham and Gakpo. I'm very happy with those individual choices, but there are a few areas up for grabs, as I mentioned earlier. So Declan Rice for Saka or Bellingham. I could also bring in Xavi Simons for one of those English midfielders. Maybe Fabian Ruiz instead of Nico Williams. Up front, I'm still considering Yamal and maybe a Dembele to be a bit differential. Memphis Depay also crosses my mind, but I'm very happy with Kane, Mbappe and Gakpo. I still think that's the best front three you can assemble, and I don't want to go too in on a certain team, although you could argue I've done that with England. So maybe displacing one of their players for Xavi Simons is probably the best play in terms of pure balance, but in terms of the captaincy, it might seem ridiculous. I'm looking to captain Mbappe on the Tuesday, the 9th of July, and on the following day, the plan will be to captain Mark Gay, with the likes of Harry Kane being the backup captain. But let me know your thoughts down the comment section below. I discussed the captaincy in more detail during the Best Limitless Team video and podcast, so be sure to check that out as well. And this 50-man squad isn't locked in. In fact, it's identical to what I showed you in the Best Wildcard Team, but there's a few things up for grabs, and I've discussed all of them throughout this podcast. Let's now move on to the alternative section and discuss all the players that could still make it into my 50-man squad. It goes without saying that the main alternatives in goal are Unai Simon and Verbruggen, because there's only 4 semi-finalists and 4 starting goalkeepers, but Unai Simon is the more likely of the two to get into my final 50-man wildcard team. Theo Hernandez and Saliba have a great chance of getting in, especially if I change the goalkeeper. John Stones, Walker and Ake remain solid options at the back. Then you've got Tchouaméni, Fabian Ruiz, Rodri, Declan Rice and Xavi Simons. I think the 3 standouts there are Fabian Ruiz, Rice and Simons. And up front, Dembele, Depay and Yamal. If I had to pick one, it'd certainly be Yamal at the moment, but Depay has a great goal-scoring record for the Netherlands as well. Let me know if any of these players and alternative picks are in your 50-man squad. I would assume Unai Simon and Saliba will be very popular, and of course Theo Hernandez is also very exciting to own, although he hasn't really proven it with goals or assists in this tournament. The most likely changes you will see during the deadline stream tomorrow are Unai Simon, Saliba, Rice and Ruiz replacing Maignan, Cucurella, Saka and Nico Williams, but there could be further changes depending on the lineups we see between France and Spain during the deadline stream tomorrow. Be sure not to miss it by smashing the like button and subscribe if you're new. It'd be very much appreciated. Let's get this video to 300 likes and let's keep on pushing towards 25,000 subscribers and beyond. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram, DylanRCM, and check all the other links in the description below for my Patreon and the Championships Discord server, Euro Fantasy League, Draft Town, as well as Spotify. Thank you very much for all your support throughout this Euros tournament. It has been great and we're very close to reaching some new milestones and going towards new goals in the future. I wish you all the best of luck for Matchday 6 and of course the Euros final next week. And I'll see you next time.